Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to iTalk Movies here on the Popcorn Talk Network. Today, I'm so honored to have Alexi, Pappas, and Jeremy Teicher here in studio, the writers, directors, creators of one of my favorite movies of 2017, Tracktown. So don't move a muscle.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's iTalk Movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, here they are. We have Alexi, Pappas, and Jeremy Teicher here in studio to talk about Tracktown. Guys, as I mentioned at the top, I loved this movie. I'm being sincere when I say it was one of my favorite movies of 2017. Let the folks know who you are and where they can find you on social media, if you would.
My name is Alexi Pappas, and you can find me at Alexi Pappas on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Great.
And I'm Jeremy Teicher, and you can find me at Jeremy Teicher.
Amazing, guys. And my name is Jeff Graham. I'll be hosting today, having a conversation about this awesome movie. If you guys want to catch me online, you can do so at Jeffrey C. Graham. So yeah, I watched it last night, you guys, and I'm serious when I say it was one of my favorite movies of this year. I love kind of coming-of-age indies, so I feel like tonally it was a great movie for me to be watching. And I used to be a long-distance runner, so there's a lot for me to connect to. But for those who don't know, guys, this is a movie about a aspiring Olympian long-distance runner who kind of has her professional ambitions very firmly cemented in her mind, but maybe doesn't have a sense over who she is on a personal level.
Totally. I think you captured it right there, that she's kind of at this crossroads where something that the main character, Plum, has been doing her whole life is suddenly coming into collision with all the other things she could be doing and all the other people and mentalities that exist.
Absolutely, guys, and that's the voice of the character, or the actress who plays Plum, also co-creator of the movie, Alexi. How closely would you say this protagonist is to you?
Yeah, so Plum is sort of a collage of my experiences and observations. So there are certainly so many of the details of the movie are true to life. The weird mush that she's eating before a race and the the routine of it, the naps, those are all true to life. But I think what separates Plum from me is that Plum has had this single track focus her whole life and is now just starting to explore other things. And I came from more of a background in other sports and other activities and film work and things like that. And so I can appreciate that Plum is very real and identify with her, but we're not the exact same person on a journey.
Well, let's talk about you guys specifically before we talk about the movie. Alexi is an Olympic runner. You guys, I feel like both are the kinds of people that make people question their life choices, because you've produced TV feature films. You have the national record in Greece for the 10,000 meter, what do they call it, just run?
The run.
Exactly. And I'm like, oh, like I did my laundry today. Like I'm killing it. But it's such an honor to have both of you guys here. But you've known each other for a long time. You guys met at Dartmouth in 2009, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great, cool. So how firmly cemented was your running career by the time you got to Dartmouth?
Not at all. And I think Jeremy can speak to my I was on a journey, but I had not yet found my elite running path until later in college. And so when we met, I was more developing as an athlete, hoped that I would be able to contribute team points on a college level, wasn't thinking about the Olympics, and was more daydreaming about the creative stuff at that point.
Yeah, and I'm sure you were also in a creative space too. Would you have called yourself, we'll start with you, Alexi, would you have called yourself more of a filmmaker turned runner or runner turned filmmaker?
I think the filmmaking and the running almost happened at the same time, but I think I would say that I was like a creative turned Olympian, and now am both.
That's great. It's so nice that you've kind of had your chapter of Olympic success, and now you can pursue the creative. You have the rest of your life to do that, and so far you're off to an amazing start, because I love this movie. Jeremy, how about you? Did you come into Dartmouth with film aspirations, or?
Yeah, I was one of those kids who was always tinkering with cameras all through high school, even middle school, and then came to Dartmouth wanting to study film and theater. And I did a lot of theater in college, and always knew though that I wanted to focus on film. So Alexi and I met, and we started dating first, and we're getting married now. But when we first met, running was not such a huge part of life, and we actually made a whole different movie before this one. And then Alexi started to train more seriously, and the 2016 Olympics looked like maybe it could be a thing. So we were at the same time trying to decide what movie to make next, and we thought that we would just combine our real lives with our movie pursuits. So even though there are a lot of differences between Alexi in real life and our main character, they were both trying to make the Olympics like at the same time.
That's really special. That's really neat. And I think that narrative is part of the reason the movie works as well as it does, because I think a lot of athletes who that's their whole identity and that's all they have, maybe kind of like Plum in the movie, by the time they kind of reach the pinnacle of their career, which I don't know what your plans are athletically for the future, but if they try to enter a creative pursuit, sometimes it falls flat because they don't have a foundation of creative passion. So it's nice because it sounds like you had that before you sort of found success in Rio.
Yeah, I think that curiosity has like always been in me, and now it's like it's sort of like the through line through this whole thing are those goals. And I think certainly Jeremy and I as storytellers like love telling these tales in like these very specific worlds that we're either directly in or like come to know, and I think we'll keep doing that, but I'm sure it'll evolve with our own experiences.
Absolutely. Very cool. So I have to imagine it was interesting to have your girlfriend all of a sudden enter this Olympic trajectory. What was that like just from a personal standpoint, if you don't mind me asking? And I'd be curious to hear your answer as well, but we'll start with you, Jeremy.
Definitely unexpected. Like when we met in school for the first time, I didn't know she was a student athlete at all. I'm definitely not. I was always hanging out with like the theater nerds, and that was my circle, which Alexi overlapped with for sure. But then as we started dating and as she started running more, I would go to her track meets. I'm like, I can't believe this is the first track meet that I'm ever going to, and I'm like a senior in college. And then after graduating, it started to get even weirder or less expected. But now I'm like, I got to go to Rio and watch her run, and it's cool. It's definitely not planned, though.
Yeah, I'm sure not. How about you? When did you start to realize you might have Olympic potential?
I think it was when a coach of mine told me that, and that's kind of always how it's been with like making it to the next level of anything with filmmaking or with running, where it really helps to have people who believe in you and are like, I like what you're doing, or I see where you might be going. And I think for me that was after the 2012 Olympic trials. I finished like dead last and everything like that, but dead last among the best is a step towards being one among the best.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, you mentioned that there was some crossover with you in this athletic world, but also like the theater nerd world. And I feel like in general, I was a runner in high school. I ran cross country. I was not a good runner, but it's such an inclusive sport, which I really like. And running everyone has access to it from a privilege standpoint. Even if you're from a third world country, you can run, which is like a beautiful thing. And I feel like I personally feel that the running community embraces a lot of special, quirky kinds of people. Do you feel like that's true from your experience as well?
I think so. I think the running world will will accept who wants to be a part of it and like literally run with them, like embrace them. And what we found is that like what was so special about Tracktown was finding like everyone from like the high school teenage girl runner to the adult masters runner could find some way into the film. That was like really special to us because we knew we were telling a story from a very specific place, but we wanted to make sure that it at least spoke to the audience that we were telling the story from, if that makes sense.
I think it definitely will. I mean, like as a runner, I would have liked the movie either way, but I appreciated the specific quirks that made it a runner's movie. When I was in high school and I was on a cross country team, we would watch like kind of these culty runners movies.
Let's talk about that a little more.
Absolutely, yeah. That Steve Prefontaine movie, we would watch that kind of like as an initiation, and I kind of wonder if this movie is going to become one of those kind of cult favorites among runners. I think it's that good. So
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I mean, when we were making the movie, we one of our criteria was that one day there's going to be a room full of actual Olympic runners.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them were in the movie. There's so many cameos of like current and older Olympians. Like one day there's going to be a room full of these people watching the movie, and we want to make sure that they look at this and think, yeah, this actually did capture the world, and not like a Disney-fied sort of way. Like this was actually a slice of life. This is what it was like. And there was this moment, we showed an earlier cut of the movie to one of Alexi's former teammates who ran in the 2012 Olympics. And she said that she wants to show the movie to her kids one day, like when she has kids. It was really touching to just show them what it was like because watching someone race in the Olympics is just one moment, and really it's about the years that come before, and kind of the normal life that you give up, and the questions that you ask yourself, and the moments of doubt or exploring other lives that maybe you don't get to live. And that's kind of what we look at in the movie.
Yeah, and I think it's smart from a filmmaking perspective to hone in on a world like that. I was also an a cappella singer in college, so like the Pitch Perfect franchise for me is just such a fun representation of that community. When you guys write and create, do you have that in mind? Do you think about your audience, or do you feel like you want to just explore a narrative first? That question's a little vague, but I don't know if that...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think it's a great question, and for us, I think the first goal is to make sure that we are authentically telling a story from a place that is real. And so I think that to present a world that we know and that we feel like we can share about, like we're the authority on it, or we can share about, is like the number one goal. And if we start from there, I think that's where like the fictional elements will like come to life in a way that we're okay with, as long as like we start from that place of truth.
Yeah, like picturing that room full of our teammates, like watching the movie and thinking, how do they feel about the way their world is being portrayed? But of course, like we're the filmmakers, we can decide what happens in the movie. But yeah, we wanted to try to just not make anything super crazy, just actually make it so that when you watch this movie, it's like a little window into this actual experience.
Well, yeah, it's a beautiful balance of specificity and general narrative storytelling, and I'm really excited to get into that when we sort of talk about the movie specifically. But yeah, I do think the best art kind of has to come from a place of specificity, because, you know, I forget who it was, and quotations obviously are a huge part of your movie, so I feel bad if I'm misattributing this, but I think specificity is what makes a movie work so well sometimes, and it's kind of like in being specific, you're there by being universal, which I think is like something that really happens in this movie. Let's talk about pre-production. Do you guys write? How do you guys write as a co-writers on this project?
Yeah, we were co-writers. We right, a lot of people ask that, and I'm always curious when we meet other writing duos, like, how do you guys do it? Because everyone seems to have a different way, and I think we start together with a whiteboard and mapping out, and then once there's a rough outline, it's kind of divide and conquer. Because if we're sitting in front of the same screen, it'll be like a 15-minute discussion about where the comma goes. Yeah. But if we each take a scene and then swap, it goes way faster.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I have my co-writer and I kind of work that way as well.
Yeah.
When did you guys get inspiration for this movie, and how long would you say was the process from idea to first day on set?
So I think the first exposure to Tracktown in real life was like whether we realized it then or not, was kind of like a seed of inspiration for us. And that was way back in, I think, 2012, when Jeremy and I first came to Eugene or visited and saw it. And then I think it just lingered on our minds as we were trying to figure out what the next movie was going to be, as a place that hadn't been captured in the way that we wanted to capture it, in the way of like this athlete experience and also the place of Eugene itself. And so I would say 2012, and then as like the initial like, oh, this is a special place, you know, and this is a special world.
Yeah, Eugene was like such an essential part of the movie's DNA, I would say. I forget who edited the movie. I want to shout them out.
Sophie Marshall and Pete O's edited the movie.
I loved their editing, and I loved the use of establishing shots at the beginning to really give us a vision of what the world was. How essential do you think Eugene is in the telling of this story?
And this is Eugene, Oregon, by the way.
Yeah,
a
sorry,
town
we're
in
being
Oregon.
vague. Yes.
Eugene is like a character in the movie in itself, and I like that when you watch the movie, I hope you know that it takes place in this place and not anywhere else. From the, you know, the track setup, but also the other world, the outside world, the boyfriend world, the hippie world. Those are all like real locations, and so Eugene was like a huge part of it in terms of like inspiration, and also like we couldn't have filmed this movie anywhere else. Like there isn't a place that I know where I can find an underwater treadmill and a like
Drum circle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A hippie cookie shop where you can meet that Sawyer
Yeah.
specifically. Would you say that running is to Eugene what like winter sports are to Salt Lake City? Kind
Yes.
of? Okay.
That's a really great way of putting it.
I kind of got that impression. It was like kind of an Olympic training town.
The way you also described it to me was like, imagine a small city that's obsessed with its local football team, and there's pennants on the street and posters, and everyone recognizes all the football players. Eugene, Oregon is like that, but for running.
Yeah.
Well, and the benefit too is, I'm sure from a filmmaking perspective, like it is just a gorgeous city. Like there's so much beautiful nature and like establishing to shoot. Actually, speaking of that, what did you guys shoot on?
The Sony F4, I believe.
Okay.
This is what I like about working with a great cinematographer, is that we can just talk about how we want something to feel, and then the cinematographer can be like, okay, here's the equipment to achieve that.
Great.
But I'm pretty sure it was the F4.
Okay, so you guys feel like as directors, you're more of the narrative, performance-driven type of filmmaking directors versus the kind of composing a shot using this camera kind of director.
No, I think we definitely, for certain scenes, have had specific visions about how we would like things to look. I mean, with Tracktown in particular, because we were shooting in real life locations, like the underwater treadmill, the track, those were real places that it wasn't a set, so we had to kind of work like a documentary sometimes. But no, we definitely would have visions for things, and then but I think like you're a cinematographer, or even the gaffer who's doing your lighting, or the editor, like we've found that the best way to enable your collaborators to kind of start with talking about the emotional impact that you want to have, and then like lean into their expertise in terms of the technicalities. At least that's how I found it to be the best.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for our listening filmmakers, because at the end of the day, no matter how technical a movie shoot is, you're telling a story. So many great shots of movement. Like obviously it's a running movie, so you're going to be shooting a lot of running. How did you guys like handle that technically?
Some of that, I think now we can reveal that there were like
dangerous
golf carts and ladders and things involved. But I think that's really where like our being involved in the community in Eugene really helped, because to know the person who like has the keys to a track that holds the Olympic trials every 4 years is like a unique position to be in. And so we were able to figure out how to like be these kind of like nitty gritty indie filmmakers, but also have access to the places that like most people can't have access to.
And the people too, like all the runners in the movie are real runners. A lot of them are Alexi's teammates, or people that we just know from going to different races. So we were able to get a field full of actual runners, like doing these race scenes. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
How long was the shoot?
28 days.
Okay. Nice. That must have been a pretty ambitious shooting schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I feel like that's kind of par for the course these days with small indies. But then we also did some extra shooting at this big actual race called the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene. Some of the bigger crowd shots and bigger race shots we kind of poached from an actual event.
Okay, cool, nice. Well, it worked beautifully in the movie. I'm trying to think if I had another specific production question. Of course, working with the talent you got to work with, Rachel Dratch and Andy Buckley are like two amazing, great comic actors. I know you guys have improv experience, but can you talk about what that was like to be acting with Rachel Dratch?
Yeah, Rachel and Andy brought sort of this level of like energy and expertise, but also just like a willingness to be a part of this homegrown kind of production that made the set and made everybody better. And I think that's something that like Rachel and Andy do so well, is that they are able to be like completely themselves in an environment that is filled with people all doing their best, but are maybe from different experience backgrounds, or
this isn't a network set. Like, this is like
Yeah,
a less
exactly.
conventional. I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's a guerrilla shoot. You're indie. You're on location.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not like it's Studio 8H in Rockefeller Plaza.
Yes, like the trailer that we shot some of the movie in, this RV happened to be the actor trailer as well. And so someone like Rachel, for her to come in and be so open-minded, and also just to bring her own gifts to set, and same with Andy, was amazing. And we did get the chance to do a little bit of improv. Jeremy sort of had us I remember one day in particular do a bit of that on set, and that was like one of the most fun things I've ever done.
Yeah, you have some improvisational experience, right? This kind of relates to the idea of just your performance. I was pretty blown away by the performance you offered in this movie. Do you have a lot of acting experience, or?
I have a lot of improv experience,
Okay.
and have done a lot of work with the UCB and the Second City, as well as just college, really great college training. But I think that we really focused in on the weeks leading up to the production on like figuring out the tools that I might need to access more of a stage or screen presence rather than a stage presence, which was sort of my background.
What are some of the differences about screen acting versus stage acting to you?
It's just it's so subtle on screen, so you realize that it's not as theatrical, if you will, as like improv, being like almost the most extreme, could be cartoon like.
Yeah.
On screen it was more about these like small details, and not overperforming, I think was a thing that I tried, and certainly I think working with feedback and being able to do multiple takes is like was a new experience for me. And so just learning how to communicate with Jeremy and like listen and make progress was like it was learning along the way. So day one was challenging.
Well, it's funny because you gave such an assured performance. Like, I don't think any of those first-time screen acting insecurities showed at all in your performance, which that must owe partly to your direction, but I know it was a co-directed movie, but I'm sure you were more behind the camera watching the playback and everything. A question I have about that specifically is there's a lot of coming-of-age indies, and I feel like you made a lot of specific choices with Plum that made her different from your kind of typical quirky female protagonist. Can you identify, both of you, any of the choices that you made with Plum to make her special? Because I think she is.
Yeah, I think that some coming-of-age stories have sort of aimless characters sometimes, like trying to find that purpose. And I think Plum is like so rigid and has that purpose, and it's more like the moment of being thrown off that we wanted to look at. And so yeah, it's hard to put into like words what exactly like we were trying to do, except that I was trying to capture an experience that like I've had, or I've observed in my world of people really like growing up so focused and then being like tossed, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Plum, the main character, we meet her, it's pretty much the worst moment she could possibly be having, an existential crisis, which is in between the prelims and finals of the Olympic trials, the most important race of her life. And going into writing the movie, we knew like thematically we wanted to, in the elite running world, look at a moment where a super focused athlete looks at the life of being a slacker and hanging out and just working at a bakery and like having a more relaxed time, and like wanting that, and then having to decide if they actually want to pursue their sport. And so we thought the most extreme version of that would be this character Plum, just really sheltered, really focused. And in the running, like, Alexi's not like that personally, but in the running world there have been teammates who are like that, and so Plum kind of is a patchwork quilt of different personalities that we've seen all combined like on top of Alexi's real experience. So I think we got a lot of feedback from people who weren't in the running world but who are still involved in making the film. Like, we were part of the Sundance producing labs, and also we had mentorship from the San Francisco Film Society, and which was amazing. But a lot of questions we got were like, so is this character real, or is she too insane? Like, I don't believe a 21-year-old person would be that naive. We had to be like, just trust us, like, this is real. And then we saw when athletes have seen the movie, they're like, I can't believe you guys made a character like this, because I know this person, but I've never seen them before.
Well, and I think owing to your performance, we're so quickly endeared to Plum that it's hard. If there's something that seems potentially inauthentic, it's so quickly overwritten by how endearing the character is, and I just think it's so easy to quickly get on her team as a protagonist. Was it important for you guys to make her likable as a character, or is that something you consider when you write? Because I know some writers are like, oh, we have to present likable characters, and some writers are like, no, we just need to just write the characters as we feel they need to be written.
I think Plum is pretty like selfish and spoiled too. Like, I think there are elements of her that are challenging to like put up with, but I feel like with characters that you maybe don't like agree with their every moment and move, there's also an element of like, well, it would be harder to like be them than not be them. That you can like still stay on their team, you know, where you're like, oh, like, she's being such a brat to like her best friend, that's so annoying, but it must be hard to be in that situation. And so
yeah, there's a lot of specific like quirks about Plum's experience as an aspiring Olympic athlete that I'm sure you pulled from your real life, but I want to talk about some of these, like the what was up with the bed and the tent? Can you describe just what I was seeing for fans who have both seen the movie and who haven't seen the movie?
Yes, this is a high altitude tent which simulates like high altitude training, so you want to like sleep with less oxygen, and a lot of elite athletes who train at sea level will sleep in these tents. That's actually a real tent that we have in our house, and it can, you know, it can boost performance, or it can at least be the thing that you think will boost performance.
Placebo.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was, yeah. Setting that up though was like logistically challenging for sure. Like we had to like wrangle one, get it in there, and take it back down. It's like it's like pitching a tent.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I loved those choices to include those details of you even just having the raw eggs and showing your workouts. That really, I think, helped complete the whole experience of the movie in a way that I think is really important. So I applaud you on those choices. So I'm always interested. You guys are both creative and romantic partners. Do you guys feel like you initiate your relationship creatively, or more with like the interest of getting to know each other on a romantic level? If that's okay for me to ask. I'm just always interested in romantic and creative collaborators.
I think we definitely had our first interactions with Keystone Light in hand in parties in college.
Nice.
Like, absolutely. and we're being totally honest.
Uh-huh.
And I think we learned about each other's creative pursuits later, and it really just, it didn't start out collaborating right away. I mean, we were still in school, so it more just started out, it's like, hey, would you mind reading over this thing that I'm working on? And then it grew from there. I mean, and Tracktown has been awesome because we really have everythinged this movie. The film we made prior was, it was different roles, and I think we now are excited to, we're just gonna work on everything that each other does, because that's kind of what seems to happen naturally.
I mean, the co-directors of Little Miss Sunshine have been married for 25 years, and I just think it is true that if you can find a creative partner that you know intimately, you can really push each other to work at your best. So I think that showed in the movie. Were there any specific films that inspired this movie? Or like, what are some films that you guys look to as a beacon that might kind of fit the same genre?
We did watch pretty much every running movie out there. Not necessarily, yes, for inspiration, but I think what we also really took away from watching most running films was like seeing what has been put out there, how running has been portrayed, and being excited for what we knew Tracktown would add to the canon, I guess. Like we haven't seen a movie that's as authentic as Tracktown.
Yeah, well, I think your movie's about running lowercase a, but it's not really about running capital A, if that makes sense. Like, there's always just say, like, your movie's about this, but it's really about this.
Really, like, set in this world.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's about, it's about being really passionate about something and deciding if that's what you want. I mean, I'm an indie filmmaker, and I feel I really identify with Plum because, and we've talked to a lot of actors who identify with Plum and with Olympic athletes. Like, it's all the same thing, where you're trying really hard, going for something that you don't know if you can get, and how that feels. And so we also pulled a lot of inspiration from other movies like that, and definitely like inspiration from Richard Linklater in particular for like the romance parts, where they're just Plum and this bakery boy are wandering around town. We were inspired by him.
Yeah, I do want to applaud. That was Chase. Remind me.
Offerly.
I want to applaud his performance as well. It was a great. I'm excited to see him work more because I was endeared to him quickly as well, and I think you guys played it to the point where I respected Plum's decision to pursue running, but in any kind of great romantic subplot, part of you also kind of pines for them to stay connected, and we don't know what their future is, but I think that played in a very interesting, ambiguous way, which I thought was exciting as a viewer.
Yeah, just that the result of the, we get a lot of questions too about the race, and it's like, what happens next isn't as important as like what happened during the journey.
Well, I kind of want to talk about what's next for you guys, because obviously you co-produced, co-wrote, co-directed this movie. Are you guys thinking about anything else? What can we expect? I guess you're probably doing promo and press for this movie right now. When does it come out? Remind us and the fans when they can officially see the movie.
The movie comes out in theaters in 10 cities tomorrow, Thursday, May 11th, and then May 12th, Friday. It'll be out in those theaters and also on iTunes and on demand and other digital platforms. So you can go to the movie's website, which is tracktownmovie.com, for a list of all the theaters and also for links to iTunes, so you can download it if you don't live in one of those 10 cities.
Absolutely great.
Yeah.
And then have you guys talked at all about other projects, or this is your opportunity to promote anything else you'd like? I'm sure you're putting all of your promoting juju into this, but
I think Jeremy and I are like excited to, like really see Tracktown into the world, but also are in kind of incubator stages for everything that's coming next.
Great.
And that's like, I think it's like part what do we want to make, and also part like where is this like momentum taking us, and just keeping our eyes open to that.
Great.
Yeah, we can hint that the world that we started to explore in Tracktown of Olympic athletes and stories within that world is something that we're interested in continuing to explore.
Cool.
And also totally different scripts too. A lot of meetings are happening, but
Great.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We'll see.
You're also a poet, Alexi, right? If people want to follow any of that other work.
Yeah, I write for a women's running magazine, and I'm doing some writing on my own. So there'll be more things like that in the future as well.
Great. Well, guys, I can't tell you how much I enjoyed the movie. I tried to leave spoilers out of it, keep it ambiguous, but you guys need to see this movie. It's great. It's called Tracktown. Comes out in 10 cities tomorrow, and then VOD?
VOD and digital.
Great. Tomorrow as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, cool. So definitely check it out. Whether or not you're a runner, I'd highly recommend the movie. I thought it was excellent. In the meantime, guys, this has been iTalk Movies. Today we featured Alexi Pappas and Jeremy Teicher, co-creators, co-directors of Tracktown. And you guys can catch us online at thepopcorntalk.com. That might be popcorntalknetwork.com. I should know the answer to that. But if you Google Popcorn Talk, you'll definitely find it. If you guys like today's show, I also produce a show on Fridays called The Unproduced Table Read, where we table read unproduced pilots and features. This Friday, we're reading a really cool kind of Americans-esque 80s drama about Russian immigrants that I'd love for you to tune into. How about you guys? Where can they find you online just before we make our way out?
You can find us both at our names. So Alexi Pappas and Jeremy Teicher, and the movie's website will have like all the latest.
That's tracktownmovie.com.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it, and we'll see you next time here on iTalk Movies here on the Popcorn Talk Network.
Thank you.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.